Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruhu wa natubu ilayhi wa na'udhu billahi min sharuri anfusina wa sayyiati a'malina. Wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. Allahumma salli wa sallim wa barik wa abdika wa rasulika Muhammadin sallallahu alaihi wasallam wa alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. I seek refuge in Allah from the rejected enemy shaitan. Is Allah's name the most merciful and benefactor, the most merciful redeemer? All praise is due to Allah alone. We praise Him and we seek help from Him. We ask forgiveness from Him and we repent to Him. We seek refuge in Him from our own weaknesses, our own misdeeds, our own misfortunes, things that we are responsible for, and we make mistakes and we lean a little too far to the left or right. We seek refuge in Allah to keep us on the straight way. I bear witness there is no deity except Allah alone. He has no partners, no associates, no helpers to maintain this creation or to bring it into existence. He did it alone. He's keeping it, sustaining it alone. And I bear witness, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is his servant, his messenger to mankind. And we say, "Oh Allah, exalt Muhammad, your blessings and peace be upon Muhammad, your servant, your messenger, and on his family, and all the believers, all the Sahabas, all those who were there with him." Today we're looking at in the Quran primarily one verse that carries a very, very powerful point. And we want to look at it in depth because so many times we get in the habit of moving through things, moving through paragraphs, moving through ideas and concepts that we don't really grasp. We must grasp it. And it's so important today that we grasp these things. In Surah Al-Mu'minun, Allah says, "Qad aflahal mu'minun." And the interpretation in the English is that the believers must win through. That's the English, that's some of the English. But when you look at the word aflaha, in that word is falah. That doesn't mean if you're going to win. It doesn't mean eventually you're going to win. That word doesn't mean that. What that word means is that means successful. It means successful. It doesn't have a timeline on it. It doesn't have it has to do this or you have to do that. That word is not talking about that. That word is saying successful. So when they interpret it in English, they have to try to help the English reader try to understand what this word means in terms of successful. You see, the same when Allah said to the creation, actually he wasn't saying it to the creation, he was bringing the creation into existence in that word. And what happened? When he said kun, it existed. Just like that, just because of his command. So it's kun fi kun, meaning that he said it and it came into existence. It didn't struggle. It didn't have to say, well, what's my job? Or which way should I go? It came into existence. And all that we see today and all that we are examining throughout the universe, that is what took place. And it's still taking place. It's not a process that stopped at a particular point. It just kept evolving. Do you know the planet Earth that we are on? We're sitting comfortably here in the Masjid, and ready to make salat. And the planet Earth we're on is traveling through space around the sun. It's been in existence over 4 billion years. Over 4 billion years. And the scientists at best calculations believe that the Earth is not even close to this Milky Way, or this galaxy we're in, is not even close to the beginning. Billions and billions and billions of years passed by. And at that time, Allah says in the Quran, man wasn't even heard of. So you wasn't even a thought in the creation. Your image didn't even begin to come into existence 4 billion years ago. And then Allah also tells us to look at the creation and understand that it's a bigger creation than we are. Why does Allah tell us that? Here we are on this planet Earth, we are shaping things, we are breaking, splitting open the atom, creating out of things that Allah has already brought into existence. We have nuclear energy and all those kinds of things. We are doing it with our mind, and then Allah said, hold up. Don't get too full of yourself. Don't get too full of yourself. It's nothing to create you. The creation was bigger than that. See, Allah is teaching us humility. Humility about who we are. Because we're going to do some things. And those things we're going to do, no other creature can do them. So because of that, we have to continuously be reminded that Allahu Akbar. We have to be continuously reminded of that. Those of you who've been keeping up with the race for president in the United States, you know, one of the candidates, he said, I can make the change. And he said the change can't come unless he does it. He's taking the role of Pharaoh. You know, that was Pharaoh's role. Pharaoh said to his people and the people of the time, he says, whose river is that out there? They said, well, it's your river. So who's this land? Who has the control over this life of yours and everything? You do, O Pharaoh. And Allah reminds us in the Quran, not only did he drown Pharaoh, he drowned all of those who thought like Pharaoh. See, so that Pharaoh mentality is something that the human being should avoid. And he can't avoid it by remaining humble. As long as we realize that we are a creature created by Allah, we can keep that humility that we need. Oh, by the way, I pray that all of you are keeping up with the convention and who's running. I hope you're not somewhere sitting in a corner somewhere with your Quran, making salat, while the world is passing you by. That's not the purpose of the Quran. The purpose of the Quran is to impact on the world. First it impacts on you. When it impacts on us, then we impact on the world. That's the purpose of the Quran. It's not the purpose of the Quran is not to isolate us and imprison our minds and keep us in a spot where we cannot move and develop and become productive. That's not the purpose of the Quran. And anybody who's using the Quran like that is offline. The Quran is an action book. The Quran is for action. All it talks about is action. All it talks about is action that happened, and action that is happening, and action that will happen. All it's talking about action. Give your will to Allah, it says. And you can accomplish these things. So we should be paying close attention to these elections. And we should be encouraging others to do it. Don't you know that whatever happens is going to affect your life? Not only is it going to affect your life, it's going to affect what you can do in your life. It may get to the point where you cannot read the Quran somewhere unless you're hiding down in the bottom of a basement somewhere where nobody even knows that exists, and that's kind of hard. I know that many of you might have seen this movie that's out called Eyes in the Sky. Well, that's talking about how the government, the United States government, have fly drones over hostile lands. Drones are flying machines that do not have a pilot. The pilot is sitting somewhere in Omaha in a garage, running it on the computer. And they take those drones all over the world. And then they have drones that come out of those drones that they can take them and go inside of a house and see what's in there. You cannot hide from this government. Saddam Hussein dug down in the ground in a hole, curving around alleys and things of that nature where you just could not get to him. He thought. But you're dealing with a government that has the highest degree of technology, that Allah has blessed to use all of his skills of thinking and bringing things into existence. No, you couldn't hide in the basement. No, if things don't go the way for the Muslim, we're going to have a serious problem. So now if we're going to have a serious problem, don't you think we should be paying some serious attention to what's going on? We should be forming lines, making sure that every Muslim voting. We should be forming lines to making sure every Muslim has registered, that's eligible to register to vote, should be registered. All over America, that's what we should be doing. You already have one candidate who says he's going to keep Muslims out of the country. Did the alarm go off in your thinking? Did the hair stand up on the back of your neck? You didn't see no red blinking light? Let me just say what I know. I was a young boy in World War II. No, I'm not even a young boy. I was born in 1942, right at that war. I wasn't the reason the war started, but I was born at the same time. And I recall studying, after I got in school, I didn't know a lot about it then, but then after I got in school, I recall that during that war, the United States government of European descent, primarily Caucasian, locked up in prison camps Japanese citizens. Citizens who had been living in America had become citizens of America. Many of them were college professors. good jobs. But when that war broke out between Germany, Japan, and the United States started locking them up. Don't you think for 1 minute, not even a second, don't let it cross your brow, thinking that the same thing will not happen to Muslims. If you're thinking like that, that's why you're not out there in that line trying to vote. Because you're thinking like that. If you understood the reality that's in front of us, you would be in the line voting and have everybody else in that line voting. Don't you think this is a problem? This is what the Quran is telling us. The Quran is not something to put us to sleep. It's to wake us up. Wake us up into the time in which we live and how we can conduct ourselves to get the better situation for ourselves. Those of you who have not yet registered to vote, you absolutely should do that. And I'm not saying who you should vote for. I know who I'm voting for. But I'm saying that you should study it. You should examine it. I believe that one candidate, if the candidate wins, it's going to be hell for Muslims. And I believe that if the other candidate wins, it's going to be the most prosperous time for Muslims in the history of Islam. Now, I know that sounds strong, but if you study the history, you can see the possibilities. You know, in the 14th century, Islam came into Europe. Islam came into Europe in the 14th century, bringing science, bringing language, bringing all of the things that Europe did not have. Europe was in the dark ages in that time, the medieval times, in the dark ages, making no progress, thinking that the world was flat, scared to go to a certain age because they figured there were big animals and they figured they were going to be attacked and all kinds of monsters would get them. And then when Islam came into Europe, primarily up through Spain, that area, especially Spain, when the Ottoman Empire brought Islam in from the western part of Europe, there was a lot of fighting, a lot of war between the European and the Ottoman Empire. But when the Moors came up through Spain, they came up as teachers. They came as explainers. They didn't come dominating anybody. In fact, they said, if you Jew, you worship as you will, and we will support you. They say, if you Christian, you worship as you will, we will support you. We will protect your houses of worship. They didn't come in that part of Europe dominating. They came in that part of Europe showing them what education is about. And then they brought the best of what Europe had. They brought the best of what the Greeks had come up with. They brought the best of what the Romans had come up with. They brought the best science from China, from all over the world into Europe. And if you study that history, you will see they began to build beautiful buildings in Cordoba, in Spain. Colleges and universities began to open because of the impact of Islam. Because of the impact of Islam. And you know, the period of life, of time, they call that the Renaissance. Renaissance is an Italian word, European word, which means reborn, rebirth, revive. And it revived. From that point on, Europe came out of the Dark Ages and became producers of knowledge, producers of wealth, producers of many, many things. After that, and this land we're in now is a result of that. The land that we're in now, the United States of America, was formed by the impact of Islam during 14th century and in 14th century. The impact it had on Europe caused all of the exploration and all of the challenges in trying to find out what was good in the world. It was that did that. Now that's a picture we can look at. That's a picture we can see. We don't have to guess at it. Just go to the history books. It's there. Nobody's trying to hide it. You don't have to. There's a special library in Washington Zone will tell you. No, there's a library right across the street in Elizabeth. You can go look at it and it'll tell you that. There's a library in Roselle that'll tell you the same thing. There's a library in Newark that'll tell you that. There's a library in Irvington. There's a library all over this country will tell you just what I just said. And if you don't feel like going, go online on your computer and it will tell you. And if you don't feel like looking it up, go on your phone and hit Google. Ask Google, what is the Renaissance? Google will tell you out loud in words, so you don't have to read it. It'll tell you what it is. With that knowledge, what kind of power do you think is in your hands? Now you witnessing and have witnessed a whole civilization that just came out of darkness, came out of ignorance because of the impact of Islam on it. The Quran has not changed. It's the same Quran. Allah's messenger, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, did not change. He's the same one, the same example they use is the same example we have today. The world is in the position to change. The world is in the position for change. And I do believe that if we Muslims practice Islam the way it should be practiced, the world will change according to Islam. And greater things will come. Greater than what we saw in the Renaissance. Be a greater rebirth. But it's a matter of what we believe. And according to this ayah here, when it says, Qad aflahal mu'minun, that is telling us it's going to happen. It's going to happen. Now, the only thing we can do is be a part of it or not. It's not a matter of whether it's going to happen or not. It is going to happen. And then Allah makes it easy for us by saying, just look at the history, look at what I've done. I don't change. I don't change. The sunnah of Allah is the same all throughout history. The sunnah of Allah does not change. He does not do something one way, and then when you wake up, they changed it on you, and you don't know what's coming. That's not Allah. Allah shows in history his pattern. And he says you can trust in that pattern. You can trust that this is going to happen because I don't change. What are we going to do? Is the question. What are we going to do with this power we have in our hands? Are we going to be those who are sitting in the bottom of the basement reciting Quran to ourselves as the world evolves and passes by? Or are we going to be in the thick of things? Are we going to be in the thick of things changing it? Are we going to be there casting our votes and causing others to cast their votes? I think that if we got the right administration in there, they would listen to Islam. They would listen to the voice of Islam, because I have witnessed that. And some of you have too, because I know some of you here are at least almost old as I am. Or read about it. But Islam has affected America already. Don't you know when we first started preaching Islam in America, the first few people who were bringing it into existence, trying to bring Islam in, they had to change it a little bit, do some different things, because they couldn't get it in at that time. At that time, the European American not only would not let you preach it, they would kill people. It was rough. When Drew Ali started, it was rough. Now, Drew Ali, they say, oh, he didn't have the, he changed the Quran. See, that's because you are small-minded. The fact that he tried to bring the efforts into America where there was no effort is like bringing a light into a dark room. And all you have is a book of matches, and you strike that book of matches, and there's a brother standing over next to you saying, hey, that light ain't bright enough, man. And he ain't got no light. You got to use what you have. And Drew Ali did that at that time. Farad Muhammad did it at that time in 1930. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad did it at that time. All of them worked in the time in which they lived to try to make change. They didn't stand on the sideline saying, oh Allah, oh Allah. They didn't do that because you can't find that in the Quran. You only find in the Quran where Allah encourages prophets and messengers to change the people. And then he tells the prophets and messengers how hard it's going to be. He says that because when you try to change them, they're going to tell you, well, look, my fathers were doing something different than what you're talking about. I'm not going for that. And then Allah tells them, don't worry about that. Just tell them to change it. Those who will believe will believe. We saw the effects of Islam in America when Imam Muhammad became in office after his father passed. He was the one who focused it to the Quran. There was no nationalism. Nationalism was out there. He brought it in the Quran, following the life example of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he was invited to give a prayer in Washington, D.C. at the inaugural of Kennedy and of Clinton. Islam changed, and they can't help them change it because it's power. It changed you. All of those of us who have accepted Islam as we converted to it, it changed us. I witnessed it. I witnessed drug addicts. I witnessed prostitutes. I witnessed thieves. I witnessed it. And I wasn't that clean myself. So I'm going to witness my own self. It changed us. And it's having that same impact on America. This is our time. This is our turn. Don't quit now. Don't give up on your Quran now. Don't give up on what Allah is telling us in this Quran, because it's going to happen. The believer's going to be successful. The government is going to open up to us. Why? Because we got the best solution. Our solution is good people, good-hearted people, work for the good causes. Don't let your label hold you back from progress. Oh, he's a Christian. Oh, he's a Jew. Oh, he's a Muslim. Can all of that. We're living in a time where it's time to make progress now. If we can get rid of violence in the community, let's do it. If it takes all of us to get rid of violence, let's get rid of it. If it takes all of us to make the police department better, let's do it. If it takes all of us to make the world better, this country better, let's do it. Allah says only reward of good is good. What better reward for good is there but good? It's not the time to go to sleep. It's not the time to relax. It's time to go to work. To work. So with that, we want to take a short pause. In that same Abdullah bin Shaitan Rajim, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, Ashhadu la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu Muhammadan Rasulullah. In that same surah, Allah talks about how He created man, and he talks about the importance of us coming to existence. Now, think for a minute the power we have. Think for a minute the time in which we live. See, the time we live in is a very special time. In fact, the time we live in right now, prophets and messengers say they wish they was in this time. In the time of enlightenment, that's what we living in. We living in a time where you know, or you hear, or you learn that water is not just H2O. Water is not just H2O. When Allah talks about the water, the rain coming down out the sky like a mist. Then when He talks about the water, where the sun heats the water and it goes up into the air and purified and falls back down to the earth. And when Allah talks about that He rains on the earth and gives life to the earth. When Allah talks about Musa putting the rod in the water to turn to blood. They take that same rod and put it into water again in the sea, a Red Sea, and it opens up. It's not talking about H2O. We have enough understanding now that it's not talking about H2O. Allah has matured us in our thinking. Water, because of its nature, is used as a symbol of man's spirituality. Man's spirituality. The things that we are sensitive to. A man can be cold, like ice, still H2O. And then when that water heats up, when the sun heats up that H2O, that's a block of ice, it becomes liquid. So now a man who's like ice is more pleasurable now. You can get along with him. He ain't as cold. Say, how you doing, brother? Assalamu alaikum, brother. How you doing? We're doing all right. And things are going along pretty good. Much better. And then there's another shape the water takes. When it's heated up so much, it begins to what we call evaporate. It just changes form. It doesn't disappear. In that sense, it changes form. And the form it changes into is a fine mist, so that it can be drawn up by the power of the sun into the sky, so the sun's energies begin to purify the impurities in the water, so it can be sent back down to the earth to bring about life. You see what Allah is telling us? His word, His truth is life. His truth, when we accept His truth, it gives life to us. It gives life where there's dead sorrow, where we weren't doing nothing before, but we accept this truth of the Quran, we come alive. And that's what's going to happen in America. It's happening now. As we practice Islam more, as we begin to talk to people more, as we begin to cause people to understand what this religion is about, what we are about, and begin to work with people and doing the good deeds, it begins to change. The opportunity is here. I've lived through a time where some of us here also experienced that to even think, we're not talking about really believing it, even think that African American would be president of the United States was out of the question. Out of the question. Out of the question. The preachers said out of the question. The Imam said out of the question. The rabbi said out of the question. The brothers from Africa whose skin is dark as ours and much darker, out of the question. And they had leaders. But for an African American to become the president of the United States is out of the question. Except for Allah. Allah said, kun. Kun. Fire kun. And we have an African American president. If that don't make believers out of you, it's hard to make a believer. After seeing what Allah did in America, take the slave. And you know there's a hadith said, and the slave girl is going to enlighten and teach her mistress. And that word for mistress is the same word as a robber. Meaning that someone who took care of somebody, fed them and do all the. Now, it said the slave girl going to teach, in the last days, the slave girl going to teach her mistress, give birth, not just teach, but give birth to her mistress. Meaning that the mistress wasn't even alive. Do you see how that works? The mistress is not even alive, and the slave girl is a slave to the mistress. And it gives birth to that. So you know that's talking about spiritual birth. You know that's talking about the spiritual reality. You can't get that into literally speaking. It won't happen. But spiritually speaking, we look at it and we see that the slave girl is talking about the people who were once slaves in America. They will change, and the world will begin to change. They will give birth to America. And that's what you see happening now. Just the fact that President Barack Obama was an African American carries out that particular thinking. Now, America is getting ready to be born. See, America wasn't born before during when Drew Ali, during Farad Muhammad, during the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, not even during Imam Muhammad. It wasn't born. It was pregnated. America was pregnated. You see, when you read the Quran, and Allah tells you that Isa and his mother were a sign. Ayatu, when he says that, they were a sign, then you should be looking and say, well, what is this sign? You should look at it the same way when you're going down the street and the sign says, stop. You know what to do on that sign. Because you know that sign doesn't say park. You don't just stop and stay there. Because you understand the sign. The sign means stop, and if everything is clear, then you go. If the sign says park, you can move. But it does say park. It says stop, and you understand what that means. Now, when Allah tells us in the Quran that Isa and his mother Miriam was a sign, we should be looking for some kind of situation in society that represents this kind of pregnancy. That represents a pregnancy that doesn't require the agency of a man, doesn't require a philosophy. That means there's a chance, there's a nation that's in this world who will not come into birth by the philosophy of someone else. It won't come into the birth by a great impact man like Churchill or somebody putting a new philosophy into that pregnating that society. No, it means that Allah's truth will enter that society. And it has entered all these years that I was telling you about, those people who were bringing Allah's truth, that's what has Americans pregnant, and their child is going to be born, and you're going to be part of it. So I say to you, let's get moving. Let's get moving. If you don't know what to do, we got brothers and sisters here can tell you what to do, but we're in the time. We know all about this, putting things together, voting, building the businesses, and we got business minds right in here. We got business minds right in this room right here. Brothers who we can start developing business, not the small businesses we have now, but huge businesses that can help impact on the economy. I have a brother that came over from Turkey who was telling me about how he wanted to put some things together to help impact on the economy. We're in the right time. This is our time. We should be happy. We should be rejoiceful. It also says that when this time comes, the believers will be rejoiceful. Because it's good news. This is good news. Good news keep us happy. We should be sad. We should be glad. So we thank Almighty Allah for blessing us to be part of this earth, this day and time in which we live. And let us take advantage of this time. We can make a better world. It's here. The time is here. So we thank Almighty Allah for blessing us to be here. We ask Allah to bless those who were unable to make Jumu'ah today, but they had their hearts in the right place. We ask Allah to give us the best of this world and of the hereafter, and protect us from the fire, from our own weaknesses. He cometh us.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.